Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. I am your Ice Dragon Rayron VR, and welcome back to another day of the National Model Railroad Month for November 2023. And today we're going to be taking a look at 187 scale HO scale track. Now I'm going to be focusing more on HO today because this is something that I'm more familiar with. The next video we'll talk about N scale, and when it comes to all the other scales, I'm just not a knowledgeable person when it comes to that. So I'm just going to talk to what I know. Feel free to do research and look around other YouTube channels to see what other tracks available for the other scales. But I'm going to kind of guide you through my journey on how I got to my particular track that I use today, and also show you some alternatives because again, there's many different ways to do this hobby. Again, going back to the whole theme of sandbox capabilities when it comes to model railroading. And so today we're gonna start kind of talk about where I kind of started. So my big layout was a floor layout when I was young. When Bachmann came out with their Easy Track system, it kind of revolutionized the way I did model railroading. This gave me the opportunity to raise the track up and off the floor a little bit, so that way there was no dust, hair going into the gears, and so forth. And it was quite an innovation system, especially when it comes to DC or direct current. You basically snapped it together. And now sometimes you do have to worry about the joiners. Lifelight came out with something very similar where it kind of eliminated the rail joiners, but it's a obsolete type of system now. Bachmann kind of survived the test of time, and you can simply do a plug and play into the system, and you are off to the races. Kind of something cool about it too is that you do have these remote turnouts from the Easy Track system, where you would connect it to this particular device here, and you powered it usually from the controller, and it automatically would switch it from a distance, which is pretty cool. Very early stages when it comes to layout command and control, which is pretty cool. So this is where I started, and even to this day, I still use the Easy Track system. It's like if I really want to get a really big, robust layout, just bring out the Easy Track, snap it together, and just have fun. I use this a lot for if I want to test my DC engines. I put it on the track and then just test it, make sure the motor works before I convert it over to DCC. So when I was done with Bachmann, we started to elevate into more of a layout. So then I kind of graduated into the 4x8 sheet. And then we got into Code 100 Atlas track. So this is your entry level track. It is very manufactured, is probably the best way I can describe it. You're going to have those quirks when it comes to track. It's not the greatest, but again, when it comes to the hobby, again, if you're on a budget constraint, at least this gets you a layout, get you tracks, get some cork with this, and it's not a bad entry level to get yourself into a more permanent layout. I've seen these also used for the modulars as well when it comes to the NMRA standard or the Fremo standard for HO. But again, it's not necessarily ideal. My personal experience with this is that, especially if you get these curves here, it is very non-adaptable. Whereas if you do the flex track route, you can get almost the perfect curves that you want. It took me a while to really understand what flex can really do for me, and yeah, flex is definitely the way to go. When it comes to some of these crossovers, I've had a lot of manufacturing defects when it comes to especially the ISO crossovers here. Sometimes you have too much plastic, or you have very little that derails all of my cars, and sometimes you either have to add material or you have to sand it down, and it was just a pain in the rear to deal with. And it just got to the point that I was really more introduced to the next level quality of track when I went down to became part of St. Louis Obispo Model Railroad Association. And so you've got basically the two top contenders when it comes to track. Again, I'm not saying which one is the best here. I just want to give you guys options that are out there when it comes to manufacturing, when it comes to track. You guys decide what you think is going to work best for you. And kind of the biggest advice too that I would give, and you'll see this advice anywhere that you kind of go, is that once you've done your research, done your testing, get your small sample sizes of these tracks, figure out which one works best for you, and then just stick with it, because a layout that has the same track style, the same code. Again, I'm not going to get into code 100, code 83 on this video, but figure out what type of manufacturer works best for you and have that entire layout be that way. You're just going to have a lot less issues. You won't have to worry about what type of rail joiners to get because there is a guide out there that Fremont, California kind of came out with that basically shows you what rail joiners to get and so forth. But if you want to keep it easy and simple, just do your best, try to keep it the same track. So there's going to be two main contenders. I'll start with Walthers. Walthers is one of those that, again, has Code 100, Code 83, and they're doing a lot of unique things when it comes to track. Like they're creating this double crossover, DCC friendly. I've seen some of the wiring schematics, and it is actually really good. Their turnouts on the points are riveted, and for the quality of the product, for the price that you pay, it's actually pretty good. It's definitely up there as the main competitors. And then you got all sorts of different track here. You got number sixes. You've got the single crossovers going in the left-hand side, right-hand side. They also provide a lot of flex track. They have curved turnouts, as you can see, and just a nice wide variety of. And you got these turn or curved turnouts, I should say. Again, nice wide variety when it comes to Walthers. So Walthers is a good brand, and what's kind of cool too is this expandable track here. It's supposed to be geared towards modulars and removable railways. I don't know if I'm a fan of it yet. I gotta do more testing with it, but again, they're trying to do some very cool experimental track design that hasn't really thought about before. So Walters is definitely thinking outside the box. Again, you can just see the wide variety. The other one that I usually go with is Pico. So the reason why I go with Pico Track is because of the strength of their ties, the material that they use out of it. Another clubmate and I back at Sloma were experimenting. What's the kind of the best way to nail down a track? And we found out just by testing using the smallest nail gun with the smallest amount of pressure possible on a nail gun. All the nails went through all of the other tracks, Atlas. Microengineering is another one that I'll just mention that microengineering is a thing, but they're going through some transitional phases right now, so I don't know how they're going to be long term. When it comes to long term, I would recommend Pico or Walthers because they're more stable as far as a company, in my opinion. So it's just more things to think about. But anyways, so we shot a nail through these ties, and we discovered that Pico had the toughest plastic that they use for their ties, and we started to use that a lot more, and their turnouts weren't too bad. Now, something to take into consideration is the points of Pico. Pico, I believe, is kind of I'm trying to figure out. It's not riveted down. It's the typical method that I believe it is glued down, or there's a piece of metal that holds it. I can't quite remember, or can't remember the terminology, but it's not riveted down. So I had a few of these actually crack on me, maybe once or twice, but that was because of me. I did apply too much pressure when I went to go install, but it is something to note. But something I do like is their Unifrogs. I've had a lot of great experiences with Unifrogs. Unlike the Atlas turnouts, these frogs definitely poor quality when it comes to Atlas track, because I've had a lot of them they had to file down or they just popped right out because of loose glue. But when it comes to Pico, I've had no issues, and even my engines that require a lot of surface area to get a current through the track, even going through isofrogs or unifrogs that are not powered, I've had a lot of great success with Pico. So that was the type that I have stuck with, and that's the type of track that I have had the most experience with. And I actually use Code 83. I find that I run a lot of steam engines, and a lot of my steam engines tend to run a little bit smoother on Code 83. But again, do your research. Figure out what works best for you. Do you want to go with Code 100? Do you want to go with Code 83? And then something else about rail is the availabilities. Sometimes, it goes in a roller coaster wave, whether they're available or not available. And then just like I said, long-term availability, with the issues with microengineering right now, with moving all their stuff back to the U.S., you always got to look at, if you want to keep it to one system, that system needs to be sustainable for a long period of time. And that's why it usually comes down to Walthers or Pico. Again, both great options. And that's a great thing about this market, is that you're not dependent on one particular brand. You can experiment, you can test, and you can just ask other people, hey, what do you have on your layout, or what things work on your layout? Again, for your home personal layouts, figure out exactly what your layout's going to be, and then just do the research, do some trial and error, and go from there. So yeah, that's basically Bachmann, Atlas, Pico, and Walthers. That's kind of my journey through this particular tracks when it comes to the HO scale, half of O gauge, 187. So with that, guys, hopefully you find this useful. Let me know what track you use down below. Next episode, we'll go into N scale when it comes to the Kato Unitrack system, which I think is just awesome. And but with that, guys, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.